from the eastern slopes of Mount Evans, parked at Summit Lake and been working my way up the road. Today, going to be hiking slash scrambling the Tour de Abyss. The Tour de Abyss is basically the most fun, I think, hopefully, way up Bierstadt and Evans. For a full trail guide of the Tour de Abyss, you can check the link in the description below. A bit windy today, and apologies for any lackluster audio, but essentially what I'm doing is working up the Mount Evans road, or just below it. Obviously this is not the road right now. What I'm going to be doing is dropping down into the basin in between Bierstadt and Evans, scrambling up the south ridge of Bierstadt, taking the Sawtooth Ridge over to the northwest side of Mount Evans, and then taking some kind of variation of the eastern slopes of Evans back to the car. As of 2020, I believe, the parking system to get up to Mount Evans is a reservation one. So if you're hitting this any time of year when the road is open, which is seasonal, all of this is linked in my full guide. You do need a reservation. With the first road switchback of Mount Evans right here, you're going to be looking for, maybe this rock will still be here, but essentially you're going to beeline it this way and drop down. Start the descent here. It's going to be kind of a loose mess down into the basin and then straight across up the ridge. As I work down this screen mess here, basically this is going to go at class 3, so definitely a more fun alternative than the walk up that Bierstadt typically is. It's funny, I've looked at this west or south, whatever ridge of Bierstadt for so long, and I always assumed that you had to make a super long approach from somewhere down Guanella Pass until I discovered the Tour de Abyss, which I already knew about, but I guess I failed to connect the dots that they end up on the same ridge. So really checking off 2 birds, 1 stone. Yeah, this is going to be about an 8-mile loop with 3,600 feet if you start at Summit Lake. I thought there was a parking area on that first switchback pull-off. There isn't. So really your options are to leave a car at the summit of Evans, which if that's an option, great. And then walk down to start your descent, and then you'd end at your car, drive it out, or park at Summit Lake, make the walk, and there's a couple of different ways you can get back down to Summit Lake, which I'll talk about later in the video. Here is a beautifully lit look at the ridge today. So as I mentioned, dropping down up here, this is like a 13er that's unranked, I believe. Bierstadt, the Sawtooth, and then out of view back to Evans. I was riding this gully out, which is fine. It's just incredibly steep, and a fall would definitely tumble you down a bit. Looking over to the right here, this looks like a little bit more solid. I can see a cairn down there as well. So I'm really hoping this is a little bit less insane in terms of the steep drop off. I kind of started there, avoided this gully, avoided this gully, and found this little outcropping here, dropped in and around. The Tour de Abyss name, I believe, comes from essentially you are touring the Abyss Lake, which is out of sight. We'll get some awesome views of that when we're up on the Sawtooth. I would not recommend this as your first time up a 14er or Bierstadt or Evans. Definitely stick to the standard routes. About 3 miles in, starting the climb up to gain the south ridge of Mount Bierstadt. Looking up, it's pretty steep. I'm gonna really try to stick to ridge direct as much as I can and see if it goes. Looks like pretty good rock quality though, which is awesome. almost up on the ridge. This grassy point is what I've been aiming at with scrambling to your right. Helmet on, up on the ridge. Let the scrambling begin. You gotta move kind of quickly. Believe it or not, even in October, some late monsoon moisture moving in, and don't want to get stuck in that. Look at some of the slabby scrambling in here. Quick look back down. Next up, you got probably the crux of the route over to Bierstadt, at least. This big tower, and then summit of Bierstadt back there. Well, this looks super slabby, so I'm gonna go ahead and follow the route over and then up. This is the crack I'm looking to go up to get back onto the ridge. Back on the ridge here, looks like I can go right and kind of right there. Working my way back up to the ridge and then descend a little bit. Definitely worried about the weather, but I'm in no man's land, so just got to move quickly and sacrifice some video quality, so apologies for that. Your first look at Abyss Lake with the Sawtooth and your route back to Evans behind you. I think that's the end of the crux of the route. Now I just gotta scramble some more here on a ridge to the top of Bierstadt. Pretty good scramble. Rock quality overall good to great, I would say. Definitely a lot of different variations you can make as well. Crux down climb, then onto the flat ridge over to Bierstadt, and then you can get a look at the Sawtooth. I look back up to probably the Crux down climb. Loose. Man, another tough down climb here. Little notch in the ridge, you have to down climb a bit. More scrambling and a very steep cliff to the right, so stay away from that. Look back at the technical section there. You can see there's a pretty good cliff out to the left, so if in doubt, stay right. Summit of Mount Bierstadt, right in front of you, about a quarter mile away. I might have to tag it if I can't skirt around it, but you can kind of see the conditions of loose rock. If memory serves me correctly, comparing the south ridge of Bierstadt to the Sawtooth, the crux of the route is definitely behind you. Sawtooth has some class 3, but you can avoid a lot of it sticking to the sides. Summit of Bierstadt. Moving on very quickly down to the Sawtooth. Here's a look at the Sawtooth working down the Sawtooth, snow showers are starting to pick up a little bit. In general, what you really want to do is stay as direct to this ridge as you can. It looks a lot worse than it actually is, and if you stick to the ridge, it's better than going off to either side, which is just going to lead you into some like pretty loose crap you don't need to deal with. I have a full video on the Sawtooth, so I'm not going to be shooting a ton of B-roll. My main goal is to move as fast as I can, safely, of course. If you want more likely a better look at the Sawtooth Ridge, you can go ahead and check that out. I'll link that in the description here. Look west, and the clouds that are chasing me, and the Bierstadt trailhead about a quarter of the way down. Definitely a little bit harder than I remember. Like so many ridges and ridgeline traverses, the Sawtooth can be however difficult you want it to be. If you're gonna drop down wicked far right into the gully, you're gonna probably be on loose class 2, maybe class 1. If you stay directly to the ridge here, excuse my sniffles, it's gonna be a lot more exposure like this, and a lot more class 3. First section done. Basically down to the saddle of Sawtooth. Cruising. So in front of you here, you have 3 kind of obvious towers, and then a big tower, and then your exit, which is right out there. The only tower you really need to climb is this last one here. I've seen a social trail or cairns off to the right of it, but in my experience, it's just more solid rock, so it's more enjoyable traveled, even though it might be a little bit more elevation gain than you need. It's cool how these ridge lines work. So I ended up getting stuck in there, and I was like, no, I don't think this is the right way. So it turns out, not only do you not have to climb those towers I just pointed out, but you shouldn't, because you'll get cliffed out. Oh, this is a fun stretch. I look back at the little down climb that I just did. Of course, blue skies over there. And yeah, looking back at the Sawtooth. This is a look at that last tower I showed you earlier. You might be able to tell there's a big cairn there, so you can go around. You can climb right up it. About 4 miles, 2,300 feet of elevation gain so far. Pretty cool look. You got the Sawtooth, Bierstadt, South Ridge, drop down, getting there, up there. I cannot wait to be off the Sawtooth. Just from a mental perspective, it'll give me a little relief. It's also the end of the technical climbing, scrambling, hiking. And there's your crossover. Damn it. I think for a lot of people, the most daunting part of the Sawtooth is this crossover here, but in reality it's really not a big deal. It just looks very precarious, especially if you have an eye on it from the Bierstadt side, but it's really just kind of a nice wider path, and trail conditions admittedly suck, but it's not like sketchy, at least for me. Towards the end here, you'll see this big chunk of, I believe it's granite, rock. Someone will correct me, but you're gonna kind of work up a little bit and then over. Do not go up into that. You absolutely don't need to. up on the big plateau up here. So beeline it this way over to Evans. I guess now is a good time to talk about bail points. If things had gone very, very south for you, you could head this way, and Summit Lake's kind of right through there. There is an observatory tower up on the top of Evans to give you some partial reprieve. Definitely want to pick a day, maybe not like this one, with clear weather, so you can extend it into longer hours than you think. So in front of you here, this is West Evans. It's not technically a summit because of the rise drop rule we use here, but it is above 14,000 feet. Clouds I've been running from all day finally caught me. There's Bierstadt in a snow shower. That's what's coming for me. I don't know if I've cracked this part of going over to Evans yet, but from the 3 or 4 times I have done it, what I've learned is kind of to trust staying low. So I'm gonna follow this path that I'm on right here as long as I can and stay low, because I don't want to lose any more elevation gain. As I'm working my way across here, let's talk about gear. You obviously want to be prepared for anything, including snow that's far too early, because you just never know up this high. So I'll link my 14er kit in the description below. You can help support the channel by shopping all kinds of different gear. Donate as well, but in general, man, look at this. You just want to be prepared for everything. I have like 3 more coats, gloves, and so the weather in terms of precipitation isn't bothering me as much as the potential for thunderstorm, which is very, very low, but you never know. Summit of Mount Evans is right here. At this point, you kind of have 2 options. You can go straight across, and there'll be a trail from the parking area up to the summit, or I believe you can take this ridge. Looking down to some of Mount Evans North Couloirs I've always wanted to do. Summit ahead of you, and looking back down to Summit Lake and the road. To the summit here, 6.7 miles with 3,400 feet of elevation gain. Pleasantly surprised by the weather, and I know it's not going to last the whole afternoon, but pretty much clear up here, which is awesome. Have the summit to myself, and yeah, gonna head down the road next. There'll be a bit of route finding there, which I'll show you, but if you look down, your car is just right down there. Leaving Evans now, and basically gonna cut straight through there and then go left. If you were in like a super dire situation, you could just cut to the left down of the observatory. I've done that before. It's not fun, so I'd probably recommend just working down the road a bit, and the slopes will be just a much easier grade, and you don't have to worry about like eating shit and rolling down the hill. So that's always a good thing. The governor who Evans was named after was like not a good dude, but he also like stole the name. It used to be called Rosalie Peak, which is now over that way, and Rosalie Peak was named after the, I believe it was an artist who discovered it, Evans now first, and he named it for his wife. But then, like, along the way, it got renamed for the, I believe it was a governor of Colorado. And now we're canceling everything, so probably going to be renamed. But in either case, I would say, back to my point, which is Evans is probably the best when you can get up here without the road being open, because you know, you're just going to have a much more secluded experience, which for me is always nice. Overall, the Tour de Abyss was definitely fun. I am very happy I finally checked it off, and just like the South Ridge of Democrat that I posted recently as well, by far the best way up a mountain that is otherwise very, very monotonous. Random thought of the day, and I got a question for you guys. So I took this couple's picture at the summit, and I realized, like, I don't do any kind of like 3, 2, 1 cheese, like just like fire away. What do you guys do? Do you count down when you take a stranger's photo or anybody's photo, or are you just sending it? Let me know in the comments. That's up there. Find your way down here somewhere. This is like the 3rd switchback, and eventually you're gonna kind of keep going this way down the slopes, rejoin the road, and then sprint back to your car. This big rock outcropping, you're gonna go down, basically working down the slopes here. I'm actually really surprised there's like some cars there. In general, this is kind of a choose your own adventure. You want to pick something that is steep enough that you're not adding extra mileage, but also not too steep so you're eroding the whole mountainside. This looks pretty good right now, so I'm going to kind of stick to this. Hey, now in this rock mess, very loose boulder field. There really is just no easy way, it seems, to get back down to this damn road, but I'm getting close, so let's be positive. A look back up, my general descent was like down towards the road. It's a very grassy, the typical alpine grass where one step is flat, the other step is 3 inches in the ground, and you could roll your ankle, but it's much better than what we have been dealing with, so that is awesome. Yeah, highly recommend this one. It's good. It sucks to lose all that elevation at first and then have to gain it back, but really minor complaints. You're of course dealing with most people's least favorite 14er, the Bierstadt, and Sawtooth can be kind of more crowded, but in general I think it's like a really enjoyable day, and yeah, highly recommend this one. It's going to be just about a 9-mile loop toward the abyss with 3,500 feet of elevation gain. For a free trail guide, including the GPX file, which may or may not be useful for you, on the Tour de Abyss, you can check the link in the description below. To help support the channel, there's all kinds of stuff on my website, donations, gear, etc. If you found this video at all entertaining, helpful, whatever, throw me a thumbs up. Really helps in the algorithm. And if you don't want to miss any future adventures, hit the subscribe button. I have videos on the standard route from Echo Lake and Summit Lake of Mount Evans, of the standard route of Mount Bierstadt, the standard Sawtooth route of Mount Bierstadt, pretty much anything you can think of in this area. So go ahead and check those out if you don't want to do the Tour de Abyss, but you want to check out this hike. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next adventure.